Okay, let's get started. So the session of today is all about building a serverless API, a data API using DAB, Data API Builder, and leveraging some PaaS services like Azure Container Apps and Azure API Management. So first of all, a big thank you to the sponsors and all of you who have made this event possible. I'm Massimo Crippa. I'm working at Codit Belgium as App Innovation Lead, meaning that over there we are building, let's say, cloud-native application using PaaS services from Azure and other technologies like Azure Kubernetes and all the Kubernetes ecosystem. I'm an Italian living in France and working in Belgium. I do this session in English because I'm scared about my coniugare i verbi al congiuntivo, so I just go in English. I hope it's fine for you. So let's get started. So today, every company wants to transform digitally and change the way they deliver value to customers, for example, by building new digital products, new digital services, and also modernizing their existing application landscape. In this context, APIs are playing a key role, for example, by breaking down the traditional data silos, enabling the horizontal integration between systems. That's a classic scenario, but also opening up the enterprise and surfacing data and services vertically to the outside world, for example, to external parties. When it's about app innovation, what are the key success factors? Mainly those three. The first one, optimize the cost. What does it mean? It means do more with less. This is typically coming from cost reduction, keeping under control your cloud expenses, of course. The second one is like innovate faster, meaning increase the speed of innovation, having a lower time to market, release value as soon as possible. And the third one is operate confidently. What does it mean? It means empower developers to deliver something that is more secure, a solution that is more secure, a solution that is more reliable, and so on. So leveraging the power that Azure does to be to work without having the fear that something is not secure enough. In all of this, platform as a service represents one of the most, let's say, cost-effective way to strategically shift resources from on-premises to the cloud, mainly because, as this paper state, 40%, for example, you get 40% of reduction in terms of infrastructure cost. But it's not only infrastructure, it's also the services that Azure build on top of that infrastructure. For example, if you got to work with app service, you get Blue-green deployment, you get integration with application insights, better observability, and so on. So all of these software layers, it allows you to also have a 50% increase in speed of development. So that brings me, that little introduction brings me to the agenda of today, where we want to first look at the story of Marcus Analytics. It's a fictional company. And then we build up, following this story, a low-code API focusing on the three success factors that we just said. So the time to market, so having a little time to market, reduce the cost, and having security, let's say, and reliability under control. Let's look at the use case. So there is this company, Marcus Analytics, and their analytics teams, they want to expose, let's say, a dataset to their customer externally, outside to the boundaries of their company. So these datasets, those projections are already ready to be consumed for their external audience in form of SQL view. So they don't need to filter fields, they don't need to normalize or transform fields. They are ready to be consumed. They want to give read-only access. They want to use a format that is interoperable, meaning can be used by a large set of clients over there. the access to these data sets, these let's say company assets needs to be must be secured using in this case Azure Active Directory, and they want to avoid that every time a new data set will be exposed, they want to avoid that there will be again development cost, and etc. etc. So they want to industrialize the process and keep the cost under control. Last step, they don't want to have a steep learning curve. They do have their developers in-house, but they don't want, for example, to switch to Kubernetes and have all of those people learning something that, let's say, might be complex for them. With this in mind, let's jump into the technical part, and let's have a first look at this little tool called Data API Builder. So this Data API Builder has been launched just a few months ago in March 2023, and it helps to take objects, in this case a SQL object or a collection from Cosmos, and translate and turn these objects into a REST API or a GraphQL API. This is a no-code tooling, so it's not a tool that generates the code that you can change and then host as you want. It's just a configuration-only tool. It has some security built in, meaning you can get the token from Active Directory, you can authorize thanks to this token, and you can just do some filtering at row level using what is called policy. It's something that it's easily testable, meaning it comes with his own CLI called DAB CLI, or has been packaged already into a container, so you can run your container locally and you can test how it works. It's something that is open source, so you can find it over there on GitHub at GitHub Azure Data API Builder. It is in public preview, so things are changing, new features are added. It might be there will be some breaking changes, but it's always it's open source, so you can go there and see the roadmap, what's coming, and you can contribute on that. So how does it work? Because you can start from two things, like from a database, like MySQL or SQL Server in this case, where you have your schema and a configuration file. Or you can start from a GraphQL schema that you have to build manually and a configuration file. So these two inputs will be taken by the runtime, translated in memory into a REST endpoint or a GraphQL endpoint, and then it will be available for the outside world to be consumed. Now, for sure, taking an object from a database and expose it as is a very well-known anti-pattern, so don't do that. So it's not something very good to do for different reasons. So here there are some reasons like tight coupling, like you don't want to expose your data model and so on. But keep in mind that there are some cases like this one, the case of Marcus Analytics, where the dataset has already been, it's not an operational database, and that dataset has been processed through different steps, and then is already, let's say, ready to be consumed. We are not overusing some features like stored procedures and so on that might hurt performances of your databases. So let's say that in this specific case, we might consider to use DAV to expose our dataset. So how does it work in practice? You can install that simple tool by running a .NET install over there. Then as I said before, we need a configuration file to decide which objects we want to expose. And then we connect that configuration file to a SQL database, and we just run the DAB start command. We will see in 1 second how it works. Now, to stay in the 40 minutes of this session, I will also condense in this first demo the security part. So we'll also see a little bit the integration with Active Directory, the roles and the actions that you can assign to roles, and how we can filter at role level using what is called DAB policies. So let's be practical, and let's have a little demo on how it works. So I'm here on my DAB localhost, but first let's say that I have this database here where I have some tables, and here I have this DAB customer, which is a table where I have some customer names, primary contact, and so on. And I'm also using this view. Sorry, that customer was a view, but also this table called special deals, where I have only a few data. So with this in mind, let's go back here. Let me start from a table. I have my connection string. I delete my DAB config. So I can start from scratch. I said, okay, I need to install the tool. In this case, I just run the update. So let me just zoom in a little bit in case it's not clear. Let's see if there is a new version or not. We are right now on the version 0.7.6. Then in this case, I'm gonna use the SQL Server connection string that I specified here on top, and I'm gonna use, I specify the type, in this case, Microsoft SQL Server. I don't want GraphQL because the Marcus Analytics wants a tool, something that is interoperable and reusable, and the rest is, there are way more clients that are supporting REST compared to GraphQL. To give you a stupid example, think about Excel. Even Excel can consume a REST API. GraphQL, you really need specific libraries or interface to get used to that data. So I run my DAB init. What does it do? Here on top, it just created this file, this DAB config, which contains my connection string here that I just passed, and few other things, nothing special. This is the structure that the DAB tool is expecting. Now I go back to my table things, and now I say, okay, you know what? On this file, I want to add a table. I want to expose this table called sales special deal, and I want to use the anonymous. So everybody, no security, everybody can access to this. Let's do that. I just run my things, and if I go to see here, just this on the configuration file, this part has been added. So the name of the table and how I want to expose it as a resource name in the REST world, if you want. So I don't have to do anything else now that run DAB start. So you can see here that the tool is running, and he's control1, and he's hosted at port 5000 on localhost. Is running on my machine actually. So I just go and try to run some call. I can run just get all the special deals, nothing special here. I can run my request, and here I just already get my data in a few seconds or a couple of minutes. I'm able to surface this data from the database via a REST API. Because when I create my DAB config here, I specify that I want to use the host mode development. Here I can follow up in the terminal which kind of query is executed against my database. I can do different things, like I can do some filtering. In this case, I want to see only the products that have a discount percentage greater than 11%. I can select which fields I want, only special deals, description, and so on. So just a couple of examples, but okay, these are normal things. And then I can create new, I can delete all of the things that you are expecting from a classic HTTP endpoint. So the other things that this guy do, if I switch on here, you can just create like on localhost on 5000, you can get your Swagger as well, your Swagger interface, and see which kind of methods HTTP methods and which kind of endpoints are exposed via this API. The other things I want to show to you in this little introduction is about the integration with Active Directory. So I created an app registration in Active Directory to get a token, okay? And I already registered with this script. So I said, okay, you know what? I want to create these roles like executive management, operational groups. And then I said, you know what? This group, the users that are contained in this security group will have the roles of management and operational. I already did these things to not take too much time. I did it before. So right now I can go, for example, in here. Let me stop 1 second my things, my API, my DAB. So I just go to the Active Directory folder, and I just get a token by just running this command. Let's see. So this command is contacting Active Directory with the scope of a specific API that has already been registered over there. I get the token back, and I can use this token to contact my API. So let me take this token and show what is in there. Of course, this is a very bad security thing. So never do this, to take a token and pass in a public website. But just what I wanted to show to you, that I got a token from the Active Directory. That's the user I'm using, Massimo.Kripa, and I got these two roles coming back as a claim, if you want. Now, with this in mind, to enable the security, let me copy 1 second here the token before I lost it. So I just go back on my here on 00 part, and I'm just changing now this configuration to not have only anonymous, but to allow the integration with Active Directory. How do I do that? I could create this file manually, but okay, I prefer to do it via a command. So again, I will delete the file that I created before, and then I will, in this case, init again the file, and by saying that this time I want to use Azure AD, I want to use the audience, the API that I created before, and I want to use this tenant, this Active Directory tenant to log in, let's say, to get a token. I'm just going, this creates again an empty .config file. Then I go back to my security, and then I say, okay, you know what? I want again to have the DAB customer view, but I want to have an anonymous access. And when I have an anonymous access, I want, when I don't specify a token, I want to see everything, but only the things, the item that have category name equal to supermarket. I want to include all the fields. I want to exclude some fields. So I can, again, configure how to access, I mean, which kind of access I want to provide, and also how I can restrict and which field I want to also select in phase of exposure. Let's create all of these guys, and then let's see the result in the .config file, and then we keep an eye on the time. So here what I did, so Anonymous can read everything that have a category name. Executive can read everything, no limitation. Management can read and create, but can only read things that are not equal to tailspin toys, and so on. So with this in mind, let's see if it works. Like in this case. So I'm expecting if I call this customer endpoint, let's see, the connection was rejected. Of course, I didn't host the, so I have to start my DAB with the configuration file with the security. So if I call my API without any token or without any security, I will get some data, but only the data that belongs to this category name. Now, if I pass a token, let me update the token with the token that I got before. Let's see if it's the right one. No, there is something wrong. I think I copied partially the token. Let's get it done again. Oops. Let's get this token from Active Directory. Voila, I copy in here. And then I call my API. So in this case, operational, let's see what it was. The operational guy or the operational role was can do everything, can every kind of actions. But if I call with the management profile, I will only see the things with buying, group name, Pespin toys. Voila. So here, when you have multiple roles like this case, the tool doesn't know which kind of role to use, if to take the restrictive roles or the more permissive role. So you can specify by using this header which kind of claim to be taken into consideration. So again, here it was pretty fast, but it was just to give you an idea how to really take this database and really have a REST endpoint in few minutes. Now, I'm running this tool on localhost, but you can also run it by using a container. So you just do your Docker run, you just mount to the Docker a volume where you specify where your configuration file is, so then you can use it without using the DAB CLI, you can run it in a container. So this was the first demo, just to get the idea how to really get this fast time to market or this fast turning database into or database object into a REST API. So now how we can exposing all of these objects and having the cost under control, Azure Container Apps might be a good solution. Why? So what is Azure Container Apps? It's a serverless container as a service offering of Microsoft. It's built on top of Kubernetes. It's using open source tools like Envoy, Kida, Dapper, and so on. But the Kubernetes is completely transparent to you. So I have no clue that Kubernetes is there. So it's just like using any hosting container hosting platform. It helps you to focus on application and not infrastructure. You don't need to know anything about ingress controller and all of these kind of things, network policies and so on. So you are free to not know or you are free to know nothing about Kubernetes. It's managed by Microsoft, so it's peace of mind. You have blue-green by default, so you can have a snapshot of the same object running at the same time and switch from one to the other when you're ready to switch to the next version. And you can scale dynamically based on events thanks to Kida. You can have one replica, you can have 0 replica. If you scale to 0, you have to be aware of that you will pay a little bit of the cold start. It's not good for every kind of use cases. Here at the bottom, there are 4 use cases like public endpoints, background processing, event-driven processing, and microservices. There is also a fifth one, which are jobs, that has been announced last month or so. But is missing in this slide deck. Because we are talking about public endpoints, this is good for us, for our use cases, so we are going to use Azure Container Apps. Now, how to take our DAB and make it and host it in Container Apps? Super easy. We have to create an ACA environment, which is just a boundaries where we can put our container images. We have to link our Azure container environment to a storage account, because we have to give to our container the configuration file. So we will use the storage account to mount a volume, and then we just have to deploy the Azure Container App. So let's look at this setup. Let's use that one. I can stop it already. Okay, so I can go on, or let's do it here. I can go, let's use a mix of things. I can go, I'm already on this 01 folder, where I do have some simple script. Let me run it, and then I will show a little bit. So I just run my deploy script that create the Azure Container Apps and environment, and will create and will deploy the DAB. So let's see what do we have. Nothing special here. So first we need log analytics workspace, because I need to connect the Azure Container Apps environment to a log analytics to propagate diagnostics over there. The second step is to create an Azure Container Apps. How do I do that? First, an Azure Container Apps environment where I link the log analytics workspace, and then I have to say, okay, you know what? I want to connect the storage account to the Azure Container Apps. So that is happening over there while I'm showing this. And then the last step, by using a bicep file, I will say, hey, host this DAB into Azure Container Apps. What are the key points? We will not go through these bicep file, but the key point, of course, one, I'm using an image that is managed by Microsoft. This is my containerized version of the DAB. I need to specify which volume I can access to. So in this case, is the storage account that has been mounted here, the volumes that has been mounted. And then when I have a volume, I have to pass this volume or define this volume into the container. So it's just a link between the volumes and the volumes to be mounted. So this is very classic things in Kubernetes, nothing special, but because Azure Container Apps is the abstract Kubernetes, some things are looking very similar. The other things, I have to pass the name of the DAB config file, and I do this by passing as argument here. These are the three things, just for your reference. And at the end of the story, when all of the script is completed, but I ran it before, so it should be already. I should already have another instance running, so I can go here and now run my customer view behind. By calling an Azure Container App. So this behind this address, this so simple customer, I have my Azure Container App. So nothing special here. I can call this and it just work. If we go on the Azure Container App, so it was called so simple customer, yeah. So if I go on my so simple customer here, let me find it. So simple customer. I can go and see the log stream. So the same logs that I saw before in my on my local host, I will be able to see it here. So if I run again another call, did I run it? Yes, I will be able to see here, voila, the SQL command that has been executed against the database. I can also have a console, so I can then, like I think, connect interactively into the container, and then in this case I can just see which file has been packaged in this container, and I will be able to search for the folder where the DAB file has been mounted, if necessary. And then again, as we were saying, it's a serverless things. I can have multiple replicas. I can scale based on events, like in this case with HTTP scaling, and so on. So I can react on the traffic. Now, following our use case of this Marcus, no, what was the Marcus Analytics? Okay, suppose that I have multiple customers and I want to have one container apps per SQL view, because maybe one operation is for one customer, one is for the other customer, one customer is using more, the other customer is using less. So I can by using this convention, if I create one container app per view, I can then decide to scale to 1 or scale to 0 based on the customer usage and the customer needs. In this case, I can also contain the cost and keeping and make sure if I want to scale it to 0, I will not pay if the customer is not getting access to that data. So how it works in Azure Container Apps is all done by leveraging the incurs controller, that in this case is envoy proxy. So when you call the FQDN of your Azure Container Apps, the calls goes to one of the instances of the envoy proxy, and this envoy proxy will be, let's say, responsible to route the call to the specific revision that you want to use. And by monitoring, for example, the number of HTTP connection, you can scale to more replicas or scale to 0. Unfortunately, you cannot, as today, you cannot configure the idle time to scale to 0. So you have to live with what you have out of the box. Now, let's see if we still have time. Yeah. So how can we operate confidently? That's the next step of our journey for our analytics company. Okay, so suppose that we have, for every operation, we have an endpoint, and then we have too many endpoints, right? Too many endpoints means a bigger attack surface. It means something more complex to consume. Suppose that I am the consumer. You have to give me 3 or 4 or 5 endpoints. I will get crazy, right? And I will get more than crazy. I will get mad. Now, and also it's complex to maintain. So more endpoints, more MS. To keep the things under control, what we can do, we can turn our Azure Container Apps from public access to private access and put something in front of it. For example, an API management gateway. In this exercise, I'm using the self-hosted Azure API management gateway, so I can use API management as a container, run this API management into Azure Container Apps, expose this API management with a public endpoint, and having this API management routing the data between the different operations, one operation per container apps. So that's the final setup that I did implement in a demo, where I have suppliers, customer, vehicle temperatures, and so on. And I can decide here which kind of operations expose and which one not. I can, if we want to implement throttling, I can mask the implementation of DAB and so on. So I can change, as it was explained in some session this morning, I can change the behavior of what I have behind, I can compose APIs into a single API. So in this case, I will not have any more with the internal prefix as we had before. Sorry, we will have something with the internal prefix here, but we will have a gateway that will route the things to the calls to the operation on the backend. We will go through another quick demo. So because I believe that the time is over. So in this demo, I will just go quickly, but I will not go through the configuration. Let's see the final result or what we can have. Is gone. Get it back. So I will have a gateway over there. This gateway, if I go on this tab on ACA gateway, you can see here that is a managed gateway. Sorry, it's not managed gateway. It's in the managed gateway, but also on this DotNetCode.IT gateway, that is the gateway that is connected. So the gateway is API management gateway is running in Azure Container Apps and is fetching in a classic agent scenario, operator scenario, or GitOps scenario, firewall-friendly setup. It goes and it pulls the ARM endpoint and get the data from over there. So, and it can load the configuration into the API management gateway in ACA. What we have over there, you saw before that when I host DAB, I have multiple operations. But if I take the Swagger for DAB and I expose it as is to me something a very bad practice. I want to only expose the operation that I want, because I expose whatever is there, it really opens, it's called for problems, let's say. In this case, by convention, I only take the list of customer, list of specialties, list of suppliers, and so on. And I also apply some throttling policy here. And another thing, it's always good to throttle, but also it's better to throttle even harder, in this case, if you have errors. So if you got in your life some brute force attack and things like this, it's very important that you are really more restrictive with throttling when you have errors. So this is the API management. And if I have 1 more minute, I want to close with this by saying that we can take this kind of solution and add again additional security measures, like for example network isolation, private endpoint, managed identities, Azure policies, and so on, and turn on to a solution, to a sort of namespace as a service by having multiple namespaces or multiple ACA in different spokes. So we are not going to look at this because it will take too much time. But I want to share another things that can really help a lot to increase your security posture, and it's called Defender for APIs. Today, this morning, there were multiple people that, and also this afternoon, talk about Defender for Cloud. There is also another product of the Defender for Cloud family called Defender for APIs, has been in public preview since April 25th. And what happened, you can enable very easily on API management. And what it does, it just does a traffic mirroring to a machine learning model. And this model will look at your API, it will classify your API, it will understand what is the risk profile of your APIs, and will, let's say, categorize and apply some threat protection of your APIs by looking the classic OWASP top 10 project recommendation. How to do this? There is no code to do. It's just like a click, and under the hood, your API management instance will be changed to have this traffic mirroring. Let's close this. Let's go to the conclusion of this call today. So we saw what we get out of this Marcus Analytics example. So we were able to get a quick time to market by using that data API builder. We got our REST endpoint, meaning an interoperable technology or format or style available for our customer. We were able to reduce the cost and having a lower learning curve because of the use of Azure Container Apps. We are able to scale to 0, so we can spend less. We have integration with Active Directory, so we can expose our data in a secure way. We can combine Active Directory and the security features of DAV. And let's say at the end, to close it, we can have a sort of peace of mind, or our developers can have a peace of mind because of the characteristics and the features of PaaS services. That's all the things that I have for you today. If there are questions, I'm here. Otherwise, thank you, and thank you again for our sponsors.